Okay, I want to show you how to use our payment and our future value functions in our spreadsheet when it's not bringing up that nice little table, which I know sometimes it doesn't, probably depends on the settings you have, but let me show you. You can do it without that. So typically when I use these, I will usually just click on this button, the FX insert function button right there, and that will bring up this here where I can select which function I want to enter. And so if I'm using my payment function, PMT, I select that and click OK right there, and it brings up this nice little table right here where I fill in my information and then click OK and it does my stuff. Well, maybe yours isn't bringing that up, which sometimes happens, and I think more so on Macs. I have trouble with that coming up when I'm using a Mac to do this, but we can do it without it. And so if I do this by just typing this in, starting with the equal sign and PMT and my parenthesis, you'll see it brings up kind of this little dialog box down here where it's telling me what I need to put into this function. And so it doesn't have that nice little chart, but these are the same things that I had on that table that I'd fill in. And so it's showing me first I need to put my rate. Well, if I'm using my payment function, we need to keep in mind our rate is actually this interest rate divided by 12 because I'm looking at monthly payments, and so really this is a yearly rate. I need a monthly rate for my interest, and so that's what I want to put. And so before actually I do this, let's find that. So I'm gonna actually cancel this and we'll show you that in a minute, and find our adjusted rate, I'm going to call that. And so that's going to be our monthly rate. And so I could do this in the formula as well, or I can do this outside. And so if I'm doing it out here, select my rate, divide that by 12. And that's really the rate I want to use. I don't know why that's showing as money. Let's change that. There we go. And then number of periods is another one that I use in there, right? And so the number of periods is really how often I'm compounding this. Well, I'm doing this as a monthly thing, so compounding monthly, but I also have 5 years, and so I need how many months are there in 5 years. So I know there are 12 months in 1 year. I multiply that by 5, the number of years I have, and that gives me 60 months. So those are the values I want to use in this as I enter it. So let's try again. Equals, and then I do PMT parenthesis, and I can see I want my rate first, and so that's this adjusted rate right there. Make sure I put my comma between this. Now it's asking for the number of periods, NPER, and so I select that right there, and a comma. And now I want my principal value, so that's going to be this number right here. And our next one is future value. And since we're looking at paying off this loan completely, that means our future value should be 0, right? We want to pay this off entirely. And then our last thing it shows on here is type, and we actually don't need to worry about that. So I can actually put my parenthesis on there and end this right now. And so you noticed, let's go back here, these have kind of these square brackets, and I think that just means that these are optional. I don't have to have those in there. And so that's why I can leave off this type. I could actually leave off the future value if I wanted it as well. But I make sure I close with closing parenthesis and then hit enter, and you'll see that that does that calculation. And so that's how I would do that without that handy table. Let me show you one more with the future value. Works the same way. If I'm not using the function in there, once I start typing it, right, once I get that first parenthesis in, I start to see this show up. And so again, first thing I want is rate. I haven't come up with an adjusted rate if I'm using these values down here for this one, and so I'm going to adjust that right here. So there's that one, divided by 12, since I'm going to say I'm doing this monthly again. And so that's my rate. Number of periods, again, I didn't find that completely, but I know it's 20 years. So I will take 20 times 12 and use that as my number of periods. payment. So this is saying if I'm adding money into this. So future value, we're looking at money I have in a savings account, and maybe I'm adding to that. That's what the payment would be if I'm putting money in every month. And so let's say we're adding $100 every month. That would be payment. So that's this one right here. I select another comma, principal value. That's how much you started with in your account, and so we'll select that. And again, type I don't need, so I'm just going to close right there with the parentheses and hit enter. And that tells me that after 20 years, adding $100 a month with a 5% interest rate, starting with $2,000, I would have $46,000, and you know, that number there. Yeah, 46,528 and 65 cents to be exact. So that's how I would do that when it doesn't bring up that table. Hopefully that'll help you out if you're having some trouble with that. Let me know if you still have any questions about this.